What up, peeps? It's your girl, Dutch, coming back to you from Real Takes. Well, you guys, it's that time again. We're coming off of a nice long holiday hiatus. Now Black Lightning is now back. This was now, episode 10. This one's titled The Book of Rebellion, Chapter 3, Angelitos, Negros. And let me tell you, this was a fully loaded episode. There is a lot to discuss, and a little bit of a rant towards the end about some things that happened throughout the episode that has me really interested with the future episodes. Now, if you all remember from last episode, episode 9, of course, Jennifer and Cleo were still on the run, whichever, hiding out, trying to stay hidden, whichever. And of course, her mom, Lynn, getting word she might have been killed because there was someone by the name of Cutter, after them, basically after Khalil. But of course, Jennifer, coming to his rescue, saving the day, getting cut with, a very laced blade and almost dying. Of course, she had an antidote and she was able to give that to him and help the girl, the Cutter. Who would have thought? And just basically us being up in, limbo, what's happening. So moving on to episode 10, of course, it shows them, like they've been walking for maybe miles, whichever. And from there, it shows them going to what looks to be some deserted, like trains on a deserted train track. Come to find out, and this was something I discussed the last episode when Lynn went to speak to Khalil's father. He had his own place. Now, we finally get to see that he actually did have his own place. I was wondering when we were going to get into this. So, needless to say, they go there, whichever. He has it kind of decked out. This is his place to get away from Tobias, where nobody knew where he was. And just kind of getting a little situated, whichever, talking. She sees, of course, his setup doesn't have as she put it, kind of like a woman's touch, needed a little bit of decorating. And then just kind of joking with him, she notices some drawings that he has of her, whichever, so to let you know, of course, he's always thinking about her when they were kind of going through their little moment before they got back together. And from there, it just kind of shows them just kind of sitting there, discussing some things. What's their next strategy, where they want to go. She want to go somewhere with some beach, some sand, some sun. He wants to go to maybe California. She wants to just get away. So that was kind of a nice, opening of the actual scene. Now, of course, it shows a scene of Lynn, reaching back out to Jefferson to see how it's going with Gamby and Anissa. They think that, of course, that Jennifer and Khalil are hiding out somewhere so they can stay off the radar, so they'll kind of get burnt out looking for them. So basically, that's kind of what happened. So she kind of lets on that she did go see Khalil's father, with no backup, whichever, to find out that he does have a place, of course, like we stated, that he could go to without having to be bothered by, Tobias. So from there, they decide Gammy's going to check to see if the tracking, whatever, in regards to his phone, to see some pinpoints of, areas that he might have used his phone that might be not in the norm, meaning if he was over at the 100 or if he was with Tobias at his place, things of that nature where they can kind of, hone down on where he might be located. You then go to a scene where it shows, of course, Tobias and what's his name, Todd, played by R.J. Seiler. They're having dinner, whichever, and of course he lets it be known he kind of picked up on some things that Todd might like, whatever, in regards to eating, whatever, while he's dining with Tobias, whichever. He's being served, whichever. He definitely wants his expertise, whichever, and of course, unbeknownst to Tobias, R.J.'s been doing some background on him. Not enough to know what he's really like, my personal opinion. And from there, just kind of them having a conversation, whichever. From there, they get a phone call, and it's, of course, Cutter, because she basically, at first, when you see her coming after the situation, her hiding out, in the woods, she's up under some dirt, so she cuts herself free. She calls him, let her know she needs him to pinpoint Tobias to locate some areas that he thinks that Khalil might have went to. So, of course, Todd's taking the phone call because, of course, he doesn't want to talk to her in the midst of eating. And he's like telling her, what do you mean about retracing your steps, going, backwards, whatever. He's kind of like totally lost, whichever. But Tobias kind of has an idea of what he's talking about. So I'm assuming he's letting RJ know he's going to pull up some stuff on his, laptop, whatever, to kind of hone in on what exactly she's needing, however cryptic it was. So from there, you see a scene, of course, where it goes back to Jennifer and Khalil, and they're kind of, talking, whichever. And she's happy to be with him, but they have a moment where they're discussing him and the necklace that he gave her. If you all remember in the first season where he wanted her to be his girl, he was kind of shy and nervous, but then she took his necklace as a vow, for them to, be boyfriend and girlfriend, all. They had a little kiss, and then he has it, and she's like, you know what, I want it back. So he puts it on her, and at that moment, she kind of breaks down. She doesn't want to have her first time be in an old rundown beat up train on an old train track. She wants it to be in a better situation where she's not worried about him. She's not worried about herself. She's not worried about what her parents are thinking because she's on the run. It's just not the right time. And he totally understands. And I really like the way they did that scene because at the beginning of season one, of course, they did it playfully about her getting with him, coming to her parents, but then her still wanting to be with him wanting to be with her. And we kind of could see the tension or whatever. So I'm kind of glad that's kind of been pushed aside for the moment so we can see how this story is going to go along with Jennifer and Khalil being on the run. So, of course, he lets her know, no, let's take our time. We don't have to rush, whatever. She hugs him, whatever. You could tell she's emotional, whichever, but she just loves that he's very understanding, as we all both know, they're both virgins. So from there, it shows a scene where Lynn shows up to meet Gamby, Jefferson, and Anissa. And they're like, okay, let's figure out these places and these perimeters from which you were able to locate with a partial understanding from a read from his cell. And from there, it shows them pinpointing certain ones. Of course, Jefferson wants him and Gamby to team up and Anissa and all that. But Lynn's like, no, we ain't having this. Give us all separate ones. She has no time for this. And of course, she pulls out the shotgun like, I'm ready. And Jefferson takes a step back, which was hilarious because he's just like, she's not to be played with. She knows how to use a shotgun, a gun, period. Her father, as she said, taught her. She's well equipped. So, of course, Gamby gives her location in her phone, and they all go their separate ways. So from there, it kind of shows, the scene, of course, of them all going. You see Gamby first, then you see Anissa. Then you see, of course, Jefferson. Jefferson, of course, has to stop and deal with the situation. What looks like to be some sort of homeless man being, assaulted, whatever. And of course, he eventually asks him if he's seen his child. Then from there, you noticed the scene where, Lynn, and then you see from Lynn, it shows Jennifer, of course, laying down. But of course, Khalil hears her and they turn off the lights in the train so she can't really locate them. And she just kind of yells out, honey, come home. This isn't good for you or Khalil, whichever and all that. Something could happen. You all could get hurt. We love you. We're not a family without you. And you could tell she wants to go, but then she's like, she doesn't want to go. She doesn't really want to deal with this because once Lynn decides to leave, you see the conflict between her. She's like, I don't want to go back home if I'm going to be a prisoner again, whichever. And of course, Khalil knows if he gets caught, Tobias wants him. He's going to do whatever he can to find him, whichever and all that. And once he has him, who knows what he's going to do to him. So from there, you just see them, and he just realizes, you know what, I can't do this to her. And look at the distraught on her face, the sadness, whichever. No, you got to go back home. So from there, it shows a scene, of course, sitting on the bed, whichever. I'm going to tell you, I'm thinking to myself, how did you get there before your parents? I don't know how that part happened, but needless to say, they all of a sudden come in, they all hug, and then, of course, it shows of Khalil come around a corner from the kitchen. He's like, hey, Mr. P. And, of course, at that moment, he's like, if my family wasn't here, I'd kick you know what. And he could understand because we all know once what happened to Khalil, whichever and all that, he went on the bad side, or the dark side, so to speak, and Tobias basically took advantage of it, whichever, and just kind of lost himself, whichever. So now he understands what's going on. He needs to do better, and the first thing is to bring Jennifer back home and just face the music, so he can now be turned in. Of course, they're having this conversation at the dinner table, whichever, and of course, Jefferson's not here for it, but of course he apologizes. Khalil and Lynn accepts his apology, but being with Khalil, as she tells Jennifer, is not good for her. It's not good for her safety. It's not good at all. And now that Jefferson and all of them know that obviously he knows a lot about Tobias, he is a threat and they're going to come after you. They will use Jennifer to come after him. So from there, it kind of shows a part where he's like, I know I'm putting her in danger, and of course it becomes an issue where, not an issue, but a reveal, which was actually good because I said, I don't want him to tippy-toe around. I had a feeling, and he made it be known that, about Jennifer's powers. Of course, you see their faces light up and you being Black Lightning. He says, I figured out she didn't tell me anything and all that. He's like, she has powers. And honestly, that is true. How would you really think, even though granted there's some other situations where some kids have some powers or abilities, but the fact that when he said it the way he figured it out and put two and together, when she was there with him having the powers, and of course all of a sudden Black Lightning showing up with thunder, that's when he put two and two. But he didn't say about Anissa, but I think he probably knows Anissa must be thunder. So he's like, I would never hurt you. And I think in the end, deep down, Jefferson knows this. And I like that he actually feels that way, to know the best thing for him to do is to turn himself in. And I'm kind of glad he realizes it, and they're going to help him. So, of course, you see the scene of Jefferson talking to Henderson. He's just like, why are you doing this? You know, the guy did, he killed you. He was, shooting darts, of certain poisons into people's, backsides, their back, whichever way, whatever. He just went down the wrong path. And understandably, yes. And he knows it's still truly some good in him, whatever. Somebody tried to take advantage of him and show him a bad way, but he's trying to turn himself around and do the right thing. So from there, Henderson says, okay, we're going to, try to get him into like some sort of witness protection, whatever, and all that, get him somewhere where he's safe, whatever. And then of course he asks him one more favor, let him see his mother. And he's like, you're asking a lot, whatever. Or either me and Thunder can, set that up, whatever. He's like, no, we'll let him see his mother before we transport him. And he's picked up around the other upper authorities, whichever. So from there, it shows a scene of Cutter showing up, needing the information she needs to kind of fully track down where Khalil. And the first Todd wants to act a little arrogant, whichever, but like Tobias said, you don't want to mess somebody, who has these particular skills, whichever, especially when you use the word psychopath. And he kind of had a look on his face like, yeah, let me not play with her. Certain people you can joke with, but this woman does have skills. So, of course, he gives her the information that she needed, courtesy of Tobias giving him the go-ahead, whichever. And it was just like, handle this, get it done. She's like, okay. So from there, you see the scene where, of course, it shows Jennifer and Khalil having a moment where she's on the roof. And then, of course, she comes in and she doesn't want to be seen. She's, as he put it, being a little paranoid, but she's like, no, we don't know if Tobias is, could be watching her house, whatever. She hates to see him go. She does feel like she feels responsible partly because he came out during that protest and all this would never happen. Tobias would never been in his life, whichever. And he's like, no, it's not your fault. And he tries to calm her down, whichever. They hug, whichever. And then, him saying how much he loves her, the best thing of being in his life, with, her being there and all that. And of course, she has another moment, whatever, where she kind of hugs him and she's in tears. And it's just so sad. Just like, oh my goodness. So from there, you see the scene where he, of course, is being prepped to be, transported. His mother shows up. She gets a hug in. He explains to Mommy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to have to deal with this. I'll be back, whatever. They, of course, break them apart, whatever. And he's being put into the big truck, transported with a lot of authorities around him. Of course, Black Lightning and Thunder on the top of the buildings, kind of just showcasing whichever. And I'm going to get into rant after that part. So needless to say, it shows him going through what looks like to be some kind of underground freeway of sorts. And of course, you see a car out in the street, and you see what looks like, as you get closer, Cutter. Now, I'm going to tell you, she's barely has any blood on her, no glass. What she should have did was stay in the car. It would look more realistic. But of course, she's laying in a certain way, and she gets the upper hand because the guy in the car was like, don't get out. He says either go over her, run over her, or go around her. And the guy was like, no, I won't do that. He actually has some sense, but in the end, honestly, you don't know if this person is a genuine person that's hurt. That's nothing you should be saying or doing. But, it is what it is. And she got the upper hand on him. But, of course, there were other cops that got out, and she, of course, did her thing. Now, I'm going to tell you, I was none too happy we didn't get to see that full-out fighting sequence like we did between her and Khalil. I would have loved to have seen that, but I hated how we didn't see until the aftermath. So it shows that Henderson gets a tap from one of the guys in the truck before she got her hands on all of them, let him know there's a situation with the transport. So he shows up too late. He called, Jefferson to come back out. Before he can even get there, there is blood on sides of the windows. There's blood. He opens up the back of the transport truck. Khalil's gone. And that's when, of course, Jefferson, comes on the side. He's like, I'm almost there. He's like, no need. He's like, where's Khalil? He's gone. It's empty. I'm just like, are you kidding me? Where were you? I'm like, I don't care if you signed on any dotted paper. You should have followed them all the way up till they got wherever they need to go to make sure he was there. And I feel like Black Lightning and this Thunder should have been with them to make sure nobody messed with that, because this didn't happen. But of course, I have to remind myself, this is a TV show. They have to move the story along. It is what it is. But just the way that was done didn't even look realistic to me, but it is what it is. So, of course, you see the scene where Cutter has Khalil. She's taking him to Tobias. Of course, you see Todd get up and he's kind of walking behind, and they have this little banter where Tobias is doing his regular little, long-winded talk, saying all these little cryptic things, putting his hand on his shoulder. You can see that moment when Khalil could tell something's about to go down with him, but he's not expecting what came. And it just shows him trying to let him know Jennifer had nothing to do. And he's like, I don't care about the Pierce girl. Whatever. It was basically him. He didn't want to be a part of the team. He didn't want to do this, whatever. So he's like, if you're not going to be with the big person, then you can, crawl like the snakes. Flips him around. Let me tell you, that scene when he lifted him up and ripped that artificial spine out of his back, you all should know what that should remind you of. Well, some people might not know, but I know. I know those games, and those games are called Mortal Kombat Fatality. And let's just say that scene, that was something to behold. That was straight freaking savage. I mean, T for Tobias, no, it's more like T for torture. That was unbelievable. I could not believe he did that. And then I'm sitting there seeing Cutter's face looking at him like she's so shocked and surprised. I'm like, really? You're shocked and surprised? You're no better. What he did was more cutthroat than you killing all those innocent people that are all to get him, whatever. You just never think he had it in him. Honey, he'd probably do the same thing to you if he could. You know, it is what it is. So, of course, after that, he tells them to clean up the trash, you know, take the trash out, the garbage out. Then the next thing you see is him crawling on the ground, of course, in front of the church, which was close to the place of where the initial protest happened in the beginning anyway. So basically where he shot him the first time with cyanide is the second place he decided to take him and hurt the boy and leave him there to die out on the ground. Of course, the pastor comes out and he's like, we're going to help him. Then, of course, they have this moment where they all want to pray for him. Now, I understand that, but somebody should have been on the phone calling 911. I'm surprised he's still alive. And it was just so sad, just looking at the look on his face, just in sheer pain, crying. I just felt so bad for him. So from there, we see the call that happens where Jefferson has to call and let Lynn know that she has to let Jennifer know what has happened from there. And then it shows a scene of them, of course, Lynn telling her, and she's like, she knew it. She knew she shouldn't have did it. Of course, she breaks into tears or whichever. And it's just so sad. Then, you see the scene where, of course, I stated Todd has some instructions to go through some stuff, preparation in regards to what Cutter had to do and what he has to do. He gave him the briefcase, of course, with the little detonator with the finger and he just kind of lets him know, I need you to do this task, whatever, figure this out, break through, whatever, encryption, whichever. And of course, he eventually does. Now, this thing that opens up, what he does is he yells for him to come down. Of course, he wakes him up out of his slumber because he comes down the steps in his nice little silk robe. And he just like, you need to shut that up before you get knocked, thrown out of this house. He tells him, I broke it. So he comes down there and come to find out, this is the same information in regards to what's considered Project Mod. That's called, the Masters of Disasters. This has to do with the podcast. Now, from what he explains to him is the simple fact that this is the same place 30 years ago that was used for those vaccinations that happened where the situation where Jefferson Pierce's father was involved, whatever, him knowing and dealing with Gamby, whatever, and all that, trying to expose the situation that was happening. So that lets you know that this stuff is the same location now that, of course, eventually when it was down to the last person and they gave away the clinic, that was now the clinic that the pastor actually has now. We don't know where, of course, they say where the pods have been moved with those pod kids, but needless to say, these are considered the super metas that are in these actual pods. So from there, it shows that they're being stored somewhere. So, of course, right now, Todd has no idea where they are. They could be in some totally different location. But this gives them an upper hand of understanding what's going on, what this information is. So now Tobias has to figure out exactly where they're located, somewhere underground, wherever they're being held by ASA. So this is going to be his next order of business. Now that he doesn't deal with Khalil, whatever, and all that, say anything, like he could really not still say something if you truly wanted to once he's back on the men, but whichever. From there, it just kind of shows him saying, okay, like I said, now it's just moving on to his next phase, whatever. And of course, Todd's smiling. He's so proud of himself, whichever the episode goes off. So this is what I want to discuss after this rant. My whole thing is, I enjoyed the time that we got to see with Khalil and Jennifer being together. Like the episode, it was probably, I want to say in the earlier season 1, probably halfway through the season, where there was a conversation between Jennifer and Gamby, where they were talking. He was like, that's not him, I know him, whichever. And of course, Gamby saying that, he's lost, whatever. He's not the clue, you no longer know. I didn't particularly appreciate that because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, yes, he's going down a dark side because he lost his, ability to walk, whichever. So he's only thinking things can only go down from here. So of course Tobias will take advantage of that a little bit. Now granted, he is growing, he should know better, but he's feeling he's all alone, he's alienating himself, he's depressed, and he's just going on off of anger. Fine. Now for Gamby to say certain things like this, when I think about what you did for over 30 years back in the day, grabbing kids that you saw had powers and using them to be tested on, and then of course trying to make amends by raising Jefferson's father's son, Jefferson Pierce, that doesn't absolve you of what you've done, whatever. You try to make amends by being close to family. They didn't know for years that you'd been doing these things, you'd harbored this, and you're part of the reason his father's dead. So you got a second chance. Why doesn't Khalil get a second chance? He's trying to find a way, even though he's running away. I feel he does have this right to redeem himself, and I feel like we're going to probably get that moving forward. Now, for them to discuss this, whichever, I just like the fact that I want them to have this conclusion where Jennifer is going to, of course, embrace her powers, whichever. Her father's going to help her train her, of course, and this will help her wherever, and she'll eventually hopefully get her costume. She can wear her disguise, and I would love to see her in her, and hopefully we'll get that before the end of the season. And then just seeing Khalil, hopefully, if they're able to help him, hopefully Lynn can, that will be great, whichever. Hopefully with that piece that they threw away, because, that could be something she can help to seer to help him, and then he can finally, hopefully down the road, be able to walk again. I also want him to be able to work on mending his relationship with his mother, and also working on building up a somewhat of some trust again with Mr. Pierce, whichever, and of course help them take down Tobias in the long run. Now, from the standpoint of Tobias, I'm wondering what's going to happen with him and that briefcase. Now, I discussed this prior to the hiatus, a couple of episodes in, with Dr. Jace. I feel like she's going to come back into play. I said it because I feel like somebody's going to end up working on it, and I said Tobias might end up getting with her to do some damage, whatever. If he gets wind of her in some ways, whatever, and then gets closer and closer to the reveal of knowing who Black Lightning is. Because if she finds a way to figure out who these so-called 3 or 4 individuals, when she was going through like little scans, little like CAT scans, whatever she was looking at, or some information, some data she had, explain it to Lynn, and Lynn's face, the facial expression she made on that incident when she noticed her discussing it, she said, we could find this whole family, whatever, the test subjects, the things we could do. She didn't realize she was talking about Lynn's family, her husband and her 2 daughters. If that was to ever come out, that's it. That means Dr. Jace would have to be taken care of, and you already know how Tobias would do. Tobias would probably find a way to try to expose him, just to kind of get him out and open for them to deal with him. So that's going to be very interesting. I'm really looking forward to them going into full detail with that, because that's what I really want to see happen, if that's going to be the situation, so we can see if that's going to progress her, because I didn't think we were done with Dr. Jace. I think now that Tobias knows about these pods, they're going to find out who has been working on them, whichever. He'll know about Lynn, but he's not going to know about Dr. Jace. Why are they not working together? Do they have a falling out? Maybe I should work with her, because he can't try to use Lynn, because then that would just bring Black Lightning to him closer, unbeknownst to him. But then, yeah, we got to move the storyline and keep the storyline flowing. That's how it always goes. So, but yes, besides that, yes, I'm looking forward to that and seeing this, whichever. But I'm curious to see what's going to happen also with the cutter. Once Jennifer gets wind of what happened to Khalil and she sees him, if they take him somewhere, where Lynn works at, to help him, to fix him up, to try to, mend him, whatever, she might be on a warpath, and I won't be able to, she might expose herself, because she's done it before. And in the trailer they showed, it looks like she's somewhere out in open using her powers. We already had an issue when Jefferson tried to use his, and Anissa and Gamby had to stop him from going out there where he would have been in danger. He would have endangered himself and his family if they ever realized who he was, floating in the air. But needless to say, I'm curious to see how that's going to pan out. But she's going to get, payback for Cutter, whichever, and definitely Tobias. He does not realize he's wearing a Black Lightning. He has a family to deal with, and trust and believe me, it's not going to be pretty when it's all said and done. And Cutter should know she's got it coming. And I tell you, for the fact that Jennifer actually decided to save her, just to let her know she's different than being, she's not an evil person, whatever, just to use her powers just for straight evil to kill. So that's the thing I love about her. She does have a moral compass. Cutter does not. So this time around, I don't know if Jennifer's going to care. We'll have to see how that pans out. But I'm loving this first episode back from the actual mid-season finale we had. Now we have, I don't know how many more episodes we have. I think I'm hearing we might have maybe somewhere between 14 and 16, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't think it's any more than that, because the show, even though they have a little bit more than they did the last time, whichever, but I don't think they'll do over 20. So I'm going to think somewhere in that, whichever. But I'm just going to enjoy the rest of them that we have to look forward to. This looks like, for them coming back from the nice little break, was a good episode to start back. One last thing I'm feeling for Khalil. That brother's been through a lot. A lot too. I just really hope they can, keep him on the show. I don't want him to die on the show. I know a lot of people were like, after this episode, it's just like, give the brother a break. I'm like, oh my goodness, what else can happen? So I'm really hoping season, the next episode moving forward, they'll start trying to help him so he can, move past this or whichever. So, but with that said, you guys, comment below. Let me know what you all thought of the episode. And with that said, I will see you guys on the next review. You guys take care.